right now. And so I'm recording this session, and if anybody has to drop out early, or I will put the link to the recording in the meeting invite, the calendar invite that I sent out. So if you need to come back and access it later, you've got it. Even if I cover some things and you need to go back and review that, again, the link will be in the meeting invite, the calendar invite that I sent out. But it's 1 o'clock. I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. Welcome, everyone. And we might have a few more people still joining in. So as we go ahead and get started, just real quick, I'll introduce myself. I am Eric Cliff. I work with Communications by Design. Welcome, Denise. I see you added something to the chat. I've been working with Denise and a bunch of the other teachers in Ovid-Elsie, what we call your research and development group. I've been helping them this year. And I have been fortunate enough where I've been going to Ovid-Elsie and working with those teachers face-to-face on what we call shoulder-to-shoulder coaching. They came and they worked with me for 2 days in Grand Rapids, very similar to the training we have scheduled for everyone this summer. But I'm unfortunately, just like all of you, have to stay at home. And so traveling to Ovid-Elsie is not how I can support teachers. And because of the times too, I've been communicating and coordinating things with Dr. Cunningham, your principals, and now Carly Delo to support all teachers and offer our services for coaching, training, for all of you in this time of remote learning. And so in coordinating with Carly, we scheduled this first session for today on just some Schoology features and tips. Next week, we've got another session for asynchronous tools for remote learning. I see many of you have signed up for that. And at the end of this webinar, I'll be sharing with you some additional supports in what we call our virtual coaching. All of you have access to that, even starting today. My colleague, Zach Ripley, he's on virtual right now. And so I'll talk about that and show you the link to that and follow up with providing those resources. But with further ado, we're gonna go ahead and just jump right into it here. And I'll spend maybe 30 to 40 minutes just going through Schoology features, tips that maybe you're using, maybe some are new to you. And then at the end, if there are maybe other questions that you have or things, whether it's Schoology or something else. I'm not just a Schoology person. My colleagues and I, we dabble in a variety of different technologies. Just maybe a quick background about myself. I taught 6th grade math and science for 10 years, and I've been an instructional coach and consultant with Communications by Design for 9 years now. So fortunate enough to work with Ovid-Elsie, and again, thank you all for participating on this webinar today. A couple things that I'm gonna just show you. These are things that we're going to just cover today. It's not the basic how-tos for Schoology. It sounds like many of you have been using Schoology for a while, but I'm gonna just show you maybe some features and some additional tips within each one of these as we move forward. But I will, as you see, going over course updates, course materials, the new conference app. If you haven't used the conference app, I'll show you what that is like. Conference app is similar to like Zoom or Google Meets, but it's built right into Schoology for the enterprise or for the paid version, which your district has. I'll go briefly through some of the course settings or course options, excuse me, that might be helpful, and then talk about Schoology resources and kind of moving forward, how you can use that for not just remote learning, but any of your learning. But I'm gonna pause there. And before I jump into Schoology, I wanna throw it out to the rest of you, and either you can unmute yourself and let me know what are some other things maybe you wanna cover, or you'll see that Denise started us in the chat, and so you can add that to the chat as we go along. So I'll pause there and let you think, are there other topics within Schoology maybe have questions on. Okay, well, with that silence, we'll continue right on getting into Schoology. If there are questions that pop up, feel free to post those in the chat, and I will either check those from time to time, or at the end, I'll be sure to go back through and go through them. But jumping right into Schoology, I'm going to be using an existing course for a different district, just so you can see kind of some live things in action here. And the first thing I want to cover actually are the updates. Now, your updates, if you haven't been using the updates are a great place. I would even recommend the first place that you want the students to go to when they get into your Schoology course. By default, your materials page is where students get in, and I'm looking at Carly's session there. It says that the host has another meeting in progress. I shouldn't, Carly. Yeah, if he can maybe just try it again. I don't have the room locked or anything like that. So it should be available for him. But back to Schoology updates here. Maybe many of you, and got it, Carly, he tried the May one. Maybe many of you have been posting updates for your students, but I would really encourage you to encourage your students. Have your students also post within the updates. If you're new to the updates, it's essentially kind of like your Facebook page, your news feeds for your Facebook page, where you can be posting things and students can be posting things. And when you post something, you can attach anything down here at the bottom. So let's say that there's a quick link or a document that you need to get out to your students. You can attach that right into the update. Another nice feature is this poll. And so the poll allows you, I've got a sample of a poll further down in this course, but what a poll allows you to do is to ask a question, put in some different options there, and students can vote on those things. Now, one thing about this poll is it is anonymous, so there's no way for you to collect the feedback on who answered what. And also, it is a live poll. So as you see, as I'm voting, the poll is changing. So it can constantly, you cannot lock that. But that's a poll setting right within the updates. Really nice feature. And the last option that you can add to an update can be to copy it to any of your other courses. So if you have multiple courses, which at the high school, middle school level, you've got a number of courses possibly, you can just simply copy that stuff out, which just like with materials, you can copy it to multiple courses as well, okay? The last thing that I want to point out within updates, and specifically within a post, is this little plus button right over here. Before you post something, there are two different options that you can kind of change or modify your post. The first one that is checked is you can allow parents to see the updates. And so by default, when that's checked, if parents have a Schoology account, if they are in as a parent, they can see all of those posts that you are posting. Now, if students are replying to an update, and I'll get into discussions, talk about that briefly later, the parent account does not show other students' names. They can still see the things that have been posted by you as a teacher, by their own child, but every other child shows up as anonymous, okay? So if you need to just send something out to your students, make sure you uncheck that. The last option with this additional add-on here is this announcement. So as I mentioned, you can post an update, and the updates show up in the update feed, and you can scroll through. They are chronologically, and so the more updates that pop up, you have to maybe search. But up at the very top of my page right now, I've got this announcement. And to do that, all I had to do was just click on this little button right here and turn it into an announcement. Mark the course updates as an announcement. And that stays right up at the top of your updates page. A great way to use this is if you wanted to have maybe your week's agenda posted right up in the updates, or you wanted to have something up there for the whole day, or like I said, maybe the whole week on don't forget about this event coming up. That can stay up as an announcement until you click on the remove button. And then once you remove that, it is no longer showing up there. The regular updates are just in the feed there. So again, updates is just a great way of really communicating quickly to your students, but also getting your students to communicate to the rest of the class and then responding to each other. So you'll see that on this particular course that I'm in, this is for a different district, we set this up, and we will set one up for your district prior to your training, but you can be responding back and forth. You might be using discussions in the material section, but the updates is nice because it's just a nice open platform for that discussion. While we're in updates, I want to point out a couple other things that's very helpful with your remote learning. And the main one is your calendar over here. So your calendar, you can post events, and also if you've given an assignment, a test or a quiz, or a discussion, and you've put due dates on any three or any of those three, those will show up. Those upcoming tasks will show up in the calendar. And while you might have that in maybe your updates, or you might put it as an announcement, it's even more efficient to have it in your calendar, because it not only shows up in the upcoming, but at any time, students can click back on the calendar and they can see any past tasks and any future tasks coming up. So the calendar is a great way for you and for your students to be able to see upcoming, but go back as needed and see those things. And to add an event right from your updates page here, you can simply click on the add event button, and then you can add when, the time, and just the title. If you do want to have any information and maybe attach something in that update, you certainly can. You can set this up so that it can be a respond. So if you're doing this kind of as an invite, you can set it up as an RSVP. And the last thing I would just want to point out is the commenting. So if there is a calendar invite, you can have kids maybe ask questions, get clarification right within that calendar invite. You can turn that on or off, but by default it is on, okay? And so again, once you post that, it will show up in the upcoming, but also save right to the calendar. Moving forward then, the updates is, as I mentioned, one place that's really good, but most of the work happens within the materials. And I'll just briefly kind of go over the materials. You can see that in the materials, I have a variety of different folders, and then I can just simply post regular links, any of these different materials in there. And a folder is really nice, kind of the best way to store your information. And maybe in this remote learning time, it's maybe a folder by each week. So it could be the week of the 20th through the 24th. And then next week you have a new folder. As more folders start being completed, you can certainly just unpublish not only a folder, but any work as you go along. Just kind of a brief overview on each one of these. An assignment is a nice tool for you to be able to push something out to students and then for them to submit it back to you. A drawback to that is only you are the one that can see that. I'm going to talk about that, the difference with that in the discussion in just a little bit. But in an assignment, you push it out, it tracks who's turned in and who hasn't, and then when it's turned in, you can grade it. A test or a quiz is a nice feature there where you can build in multiple choice, true, false, matching, ordering, short answer, fill in the blank type of questions, and have that graded. A new tool, if you haven't been using any of the add assessment, the assessment essentially takes the test and quiz feature and ramps it up to now where they have drag and drop, they have some highlighting, they have some markup tools within the different types of questions. So the add assessment is kind of the next level of the test and quiz features that makes your assessment a lot more interactive. Moving forward then, we've got just add a file, link, or external tool. So if there's a website, maybe a YouTube video that you want your students to access, something to a different site, you can add that as a link or put that in as a Word file or a PDF. One note is a Google Doc is not a file. A Google document or a slide presentation is actually a link. And so if you're trying to add a Google Doc, you're going to want to click on link. Students that are on Chromebooks can open up a Google Doc when it's a file. But if they are on a PC or a Mac, it will try to download something, but they won't be able to open that up. So one note, a Google Doc, put that in as a link. Last look, a couple little things here, a discussion. And I want to come back to a discussion versus an assignment. But a discussion, I will go into a folder here. A discussion, actually, sorry, I'm going to go back one more folder here so you can maybe see some samples of that. If you haven't used a discussion, that is where you can post out a question and students can respond to each other, which is really nice to be thinking about, especially in this remote learning opportunity. I would really encourage you actually to use a discussion more than an assignment, because you can see students are posting their replies and then they can be replying back and forth off of each other. This promotes the idea of peer learning or cooperative learning, peer-to-peer discussions. And so to do that right within a discussion really fosters learning from each other. Unlike an assignment, you're the only one that can see the assignment submission. A discussion allows kids to respond, learn from each other, provide each other feedback. So discussions can be very powerful. It's very similar to the updates, but in this case, it's more threaded. And if you wanted to, you can set this up so it can be graded, whether it's for remote learning or during the traditional classroom time. So a discussion, I would really encourage you, try to create more discussions than having your students do assignments within Schoology. I want to point out one other thing, and this is kind of back to assignments here. Within an assignment, there is a feature that allows you, I'll bring this in a second. It allows you to integrate a Google Doc. So I am going to come back to an assignment, and if you are going to have your students do something and submit it just so you can see it, there is this new tool called Google Drive Assignments. And if you don't see that in your account, I can help you set that up. You essentially have to create the app. But let me just build a sample here real quick. And the way it works is once you have this app enabled, you can simply go into your Google Drive. The first time you'll have to sign in and connect your Google Drive. But you can then come in and you can add in whatever document, attach whatever document you want. Now what this does is it will make a copy for every single student. And so the really nice thing with this is you can simply create that initial template in the Google Doc, attach it here in this assignment, and then when you push it out, all students will have that copy. Within the assignment then, you can be grading that, commenting back and forth. All within Schoology, all on that Google Doc. So if you've been in the past not using this, I would really encourage you to turn that on. And like I said, at the end of this, if it's not turned on, I can show you how to turn that app on, or you can connect with our virtual coach. But that will save you some time for the sharing of a Google Doc there. Okay. I'm going to pause there. It's kind of actually, there's two other things that I do want to show you. One is, here's a little feature. I think I showed Carly this. Maybe she'll like this. But if you are trying to add materials, so I've got a variety of materials that have already been set up in this folder. And let's say that I wanted to add a material right in the center here between this page and this, this assignment. If I hover on that little gray line, it turns to a green dash with a green plus on it. From there, I can add any of these materials in. So I don't have to click on the top Add Materials button, and I click up here, it automatically puts it down at the bottom. I can be more specific in where I'm organizing those things. So I went over updates and materials, kind of a brief overview of that. I want to pause there and maybe take any questions that people have, or respond to any other comments, whether they're in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Hi there, I had one question. As I've been using Schoology for the assignments, there are times that I make a video for the students on like Screencastify or Loom, and I want to be able to insert that right into Schoology, and I'm able to insert the link so they can click on the link. But is there a way to embed the actual video?
So great question. What you'd have to do, and I don't believe Loom has this, and I think, well, I do know that the Pro version of Screencastify, which if you don't have the Pro version, they're offering the Pro version of it until May 31st. But if you grab the embed code, you can put the embed code right in there as well.
Okay.
So I'll show you that. And so it's a little bit of modification, but what I would recommend is create the name of your assignment, put in your description, and then if you come over here, oh, sorry, my emergency alert's going off there, probably like everybody else. If you come over, you can insert the link right in there, or the embed code. You would want to switch to the HTML and paste the embed code. The embed code is going to be a bunch of kind of garbly goop code, but just paste that in between your directions there. The nice thing with that is it will play right there in the description.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
As you're talking about videos, I've been utilizing the video right within Schoology in the assignment to help give instructions a little bit more thoroughly than the written instructions.
Yes.
My concern was just how much video length do I have there? Could I do a lecture there? What's the capability?
Yeah, you do have, and the account that I'm in right now isn't showing that, but yeah, normally you have the audio and video right in there. But there is no length restriction on that really, Julie, but I would really encourage you, and this is coming from what we know best about remote learning or online learning. Any video instructions should be no more than 10 minutes. If anything, I would even make it 5 minutes or less, and maybe chunk it into a couple different videos there. So I wouldn't provide like a whole 20 or 30-minute lecture. I would really try to make it as short and sweet, but maybe chunk that, and maybe have it chunked into a couple different assignments. Or you could do it as a discussion and have a 5-minute little instruction within a discussion, and then another 5-minute video within a different discussion. So does that help? There is no limit, but think about the attention of your students. And even at a high school and even college level, the research shows that keeping it below 10 minutes, having some sort of discussion or assignment or maybe a test or quiz is better than having a full-on lecture that they're listening to.
Yeah, that helps. I just didn't know what Schoology's recommendation for that little app was and how people utilize it best. So.
Yeah. Yep. Great question. Yep. I'm just kind of looking over here at the chat. I see Dana's question. Students need to go to updates to put in just go right into my class. For updates, Dana, I think maybe to answer your question, when you post an update, students don't have to just go into your class. It will show up on their homepage too. So when they go back to the Schoology homepage, any updates that you have posted, as well as any other teachers, it shows up in their Schoology home, as well as that calendar also shows up in their home too. Okay. I see some people are responding to each other, so that's really good. Thank you, Justin, for sharing what you've learned there. And Denise is responding. Appreciate anybody's responses there. So one other little thing that I want to show you before a couple of next features within Schoology is within a folder. I'm actually going to go back one level here. This is a nice little feature within a Schoology folder. It's something called student completion. And so you can see that I've got some folders set up here in my Schoology course. And this is a feature only within a Schoology course. There are Schoology groups, which are more for kind of just discussion and maybe for extracurricular activities, just getting stuff out to students. But in your course, you can set up this student completion option. And so in a folder, if you create all of your different materials, add in all of your different materials, you can set up certain requirements, and you'll see this page right here must be viewed. And then this assignment, the student must make a submission. And then down here on this discussion, students must make a comment or reply. The way this works is these things are all unavailable to students until they complete the previous requirement. So again, to build this, you build in your folder and add all of your materials. And then there's the options button. And so within the folder, there is the student completion option, which essentially allows you to go in and now you start adding in requirements. And you can see I've already got those 3 requirements in where I select which material, which item I want to build into the requirement. And not all of these things are part of the requirements, but I build in that requirement and then I select what they have to do. In some cases, it might just be to view the item. In others, they might have to make a submission or score a certain grade, and then they can move on to the next one. I can also set this up so they have to be done in sequential order, and I can just keep adding more and more requirements just by clicking on add the requirement, choose which one I want them to do, and then I can save those changes. I will not add that requirement right now because this is a live course actually. And so again, once I save all of those completions, then students have to go through and do the sequential tasks in order for the next thing to show up. Now, the really nice thing is they can see all of what they need to do. So they can see how many different things within the folder they might have to do and what they have to do. but they can't access those until they've completed the previous task. Again, that's the student completion folder within, student completion option within a folder, excuse me. And once you set that up, you've got this student progress that allows you to monitor. So in this case, this Renee Atkins, she's gone through and I can see that she has completed each one of those versus going to someone else. If I go back here a second, I can go back into any one of these and see some people have started this. And so in Kristen's case, she attended the webinar, but she's still working on those next two. So a really nice feature, especially in this remote learning opportunity where maybe you want kids to work through certain things, you can just kind of see and track their progress there, right? I'm going to hop out of materials a second, and I'm going to come into the last powerful tool within Schoology, and that's the conferences. So the conferences app, can I just ask someone to maybe unmute, and has the conference app shown up in your courses at all? Has anyone seen the conferences in your course? Carly?
I had to add the app,
Okay.
but once I did that, it worked. And there's quite a few features within there.
Perfect. Yes. Yeah. So I'll show you how to turn on the app. You actually have to install the app for conferences into each one of your courses that you're teaching right now. And the conferences app is actually, it's a free tool, or I shouldn't say free. Your district gets it because it's part of the paid version of Schoology. So in Ovid-Elsie, your district's paying for the enterprise version, the premium version of Schoology. So within the premium version, you have this conferences app, which is run by a company called Big Blue Button. And it's very similar to Google Meet or Zoom. But what it allows you to do is to create a conference or a video chat. And so I'm just going to have a test one here. And when you start that, essentially, it will give you a pop-up window. And I'm not going to go into great depth on this. It's actually pretty self-explanatory, but your students can connect with you in a video chat just right within the app. And so you have the features of being able to have your audio and certainly your webcam, but then you can share your screen. And so just like I'm doing right now in Zoom, I can share my screen. There is just this whiteboard feature that is automatically built in. And what's kind of nice about this is you can set this up so that it can be drawing. And so you can draw right on your screen. You'll notice down here at the bottom, there's also a multi-user whiteboard. So if you are meeting with all of your students, you can turn that on and all the students can be drawing, participating right on that whiteboard. You can easily turn that on and off throughout your live stream with your students. You'll notice over here too, there is a chat feature. So just like we have in the Zoom, we've got chat. We've got shared notes, so we can be all typing within those notes. And as the teacher in the Schoology course, you can be managing your students from muting and unmuting and locking viewers. Very similar things that you can do in Zoom, but in this case, it's all done right within Schoology. This is a Schoology conference app. You'll also know you can record the sessions as well. So I'm actually going to just stop this one because this is a live session. And once I end any of the conference sessions, just like I'm doing with Zoom, I can have that saved. All of my completed conferences then show up in the conference app under the completed tab. One drawback to these is the recordings only last for 7 days. So unlike this Zoom recording, I'm going to have this always available in the calendar invite. You can simply record your conference, your video conference in Schoology, and it automatically goes right into the completed and stays there for 7 days. So the conference app is a nice, really nice new tool. If you're using Zoom, I would almost suggest giving that a try. One caveat to this is you need to have the conference either scheduled or start that. And for your students to access it, they go into your Schoology course and go to the conference app, okay? And then once you start it, then they'll see that it's in progress. So unlike this Zoom where I sent you out the link to the meeting invite, through the meeting invite, and then you can just click on that link, students would have to actually navigate into the app to do that. Carly's asking a question, will students have to add the app like we do? No. And so let me show you how to actually add the app. Up on the top of your Schoology page, your toolbar at the top, you've got the 4 little squares. And when you click on that, this takes you to the App Center. And so in the App Center, you can get in there. There's a variety of different apps, and I'm going to actually point out 2 of them right now. The first one is the conference app. And let's see, you might have to scroll down a little bit through the variety of different apps. But the conference app, here it is right down here. Again, should show up since you're in the enterprise version of Schoology. You are going to install this. I've already installed it in all my courses, so it's already there. But you're going to install the app, and then it's going to ask you which courses or groups you want to install that. And so you can just click on all of them. I can't remember if there's a button that asks you about installing it for course admin. Don't check that because you want all of your students to have that. If it's just for the course admin, only you would be able to access that. So that kind of answers your question a little bit, Carly. Be sure not to check the only course admin, okay? Once you install it, the app is there. Each new marking period or each new time a course is made, for your case, it's automatically made through PowerSchool. But every time a new course is added, you will have to go back to your App Center and make sure that you install the conference app. That might be something that that Dan Davenport, he might be able to push out automatically. I'm not for sure about that, but if anything, you have that ability to install it yourself. I want to point out one last thing in the App Center here, since we're there, and that is this Google Drive assignment feature. And so if you, in your assignments, if you don't have that Google Drive app option, this is where you can go and install the Google Drive app assignment, just like you do with the conference app. You would just connect that to every single one of your classes there, okay? I'm looking at Denise. Denise has a question. How do we get the students to know how to get to the conference? Can I post a link to it, or do they just know to go to the conference app? So great question, Denise. Like I said, I'm gonna navigate out of here. Actually, before I pause there, are there any questions about either one of the apps or maybe just the App Center in general for Schoology? I'll pause there.
I have a question about, I use Schoology on my phone. Will that, if I actually download the conference app on my computer here, will it just pop into my phone app that I use?
Great question, Julie, and the answer is unfortunately no. No.
Okay.
The app is a condensed version of Schoology, so you won't be able to run the conference app or the Google Drive assignment is kind of glitchy on that. For those apps, I would recommend being on a computer or a Chromebook. Yeah.
Okay.
Great question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks for that, Julie. I then want to navigate back to the course. And as I'm navigating back here, I do see John had a question about assignments won't sync directly to PowerSchool with the student completion on. You're right, John, because the student completion, yeah, one caveat to student completion is that there is no due date. You can't assign a due date with the student completion. Now, what you can do is you can make a folder published or unpublished, and then once it's unpublished, then students can't complete that at all. Back to your question, Denise, about getting the kids to the conference app. What you can do is you can provide a link to the conference page, and you'll see down here, I can't direct them to the specific conference that I want them to get to, but this link would take me right into the conference app. So you could, again, post that as an update, or you could post that as an announcement. And so then that link to the conference app is always going to be there. But it's a little bit more, you'd have to direct your students to getting in and understanding, going to the conference app within Schoology. Okay. While we're in here, kind of the last thing I want to point out within Schoology are the course options. And there's really just kind of two options I want to point out. And I'm going to start in the privacy and course settings. The first one, and I talked about this earlier, the first one is the default landing page. And so the default landing page, by default actually, is when students go into your course, they're going to go to the materials page. But I would really encourage you during this time of remote learning, change that to updates. And the difference with this is when you have it on the updates, students get into your updates, they can see any of those quick updates that you've posted, they can see and be reminded of that announcement. They see that instead of having to go to that. So for ease of and effectiveness of communication and reminding of information, and even to encourage students to add to that updates, if that is your default landing page, students are a lot more engaged to go and participate and see those things than having to start at the materials page and click over to the updates. So that's one change. I would highly recommend that you just make that switch. And then the other thing to think about is the moderate tab. So within each course, you can set it up where you can moderate. So moderation is essentially, you can be approving any update posts, any replies, anything happening within discussions or comments before it goes out to everyone. Now, thinking about this idea of moderation, there are good times and there's bad times for that. The drawback to the moderation is you have to approve all of those different things. So for ease of communication, leaving that open, students would be able to post things and then it would go right out. If you are moderating right now, then again, you have to approve all of that stuff. So you might start with enable moderation, but letting the students know, hey, I can take this off once you're showing to me, you're proving to me that we can have good conversations and good postings and good things in our updates or discussions, and then disable the moderation so that it's wide open and discussions can be taking place almost immediately. By default, the moderation is turned off, just so you know. So that's one thing that some teachers and for some students, they need to have that moderation. A drawback, you can't just set it student by student, but you can turn it on for the whole course at one time. Okay. So those are just some of the quick little course updates that I wanted to point out to you. Again, kind of the privacy has the landing page, turning that to updates, and then the moderation tab is something to consider as well. The last little thing I want to just point out in Schoology are the resources. any of your materials that you've had for this school year or any school year, I would really encourage you, save these to your resource. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. But once they're saved in your resources, they are always there for you to go back at any time and access later. And so if I wanted to send out maybe this folder, I could add that to a course or to a variety of courses. If you're not using your resources, start doing this. Start doing it especially at the end of this year, because all of your resources will save in the same place in your resources, and you can even share them with colleagues. So real quick, I'll just navigate back in here to my courses and under materials. So you can see there's my default landing page is my updates. Now I have to go to my materials. And so I can save this folder. I can even save a whole course right to my materials, but that's where I can save right to the resources. So if you haven't been saving to resources, I would really encourage you, start doing that as you're finishing up either a folder at a time, a unit at a time, or at the very end of the school year, saving all of your materials for that course right to your resources. So I'm coming up to the ending piece there. Covered pretty much everything that I wanted to cover. I want to point out one last opportunity for support. I talked about this at the beginning. We have our virtual coaching. This link, cbdconsulting.com/virtual coach, is how you can connect with us. If I went through some things maybe a little bit too fast and you need some extra help, or if you're trying to do Screencastify or Loom, as was mentioned, and you need some help with that, our virtual coach can help you. Our virtual coach is available Monday through Friday, 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And you can go to this link right there and pretty much connect right with them immediately. This virtual coach will be an opportunity that once you've gone through our training this summer, you'll have it all of next year and really for a couple of years, as well as our face-to-face shoulder-to-shoulder coaching when we can start reconnecting. So please utilize our virtual coaching. I'll continue to work with Carly and your administrators on maybe other webinars that we need to do as a whole group, but our virtual coaching is there for one-to-one support. And with that, I am going to kind of open it up for any questions. If there are specific needs, please feel free to unmute yourself. I'll be stopping the recording, like I said, at the end here and posting that back in the calendar invite. But with that, thank you for being attentive and participating in this Schoology Features and Tips webinar for remote learning. And I'll take any questions that people have.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go for it.
Okay. So that's a whiteboard part in the conference. Is there any other apps that you can, and I know Carly will get this, but to have students collaborate on a whiteboard, then save it and turn it in?
So Justin, when you're having them collaborate, you want them to essentially just kind of draw their work and share that? Is that what you're wanting?
Yes.
There is a tool called Ziteboard, and Ziteboard.com. It's a collaborative online board, and so it's very much like that multi-user whiteboard. But yeah, they can do it on a computer. You can do it on a phone, and essentially they're drawing all of their work right there.
So would that be something that we can link into Schoology, or would that be an assignment that they would have to go to Ziteboard, work together, then be able to save it?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, if you created, so you could create a link to the Ziteboard and how is that into Schoology? Yep. And then they would just need the link to it right in Schoology and start to work on it. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Denise, I think you had a question.
Yeah, with a conferencing app, when you're sharing your screen, are you able to see the students' faces still while you're sharing the screen? Because that's something I haven't been able to figure out in Google Meet. When I'm presenting my screen, I can't see anything else.
So yes, the way it works, Denise, is if the students have their camera up, they come up above the screen, okay? So you can see their faces, and if they're asking questions, then you can see them as they pop up there. But yeah, unlike with Google Meet, you can't see them, or not as easily, I should say, but you can see it within the conference app. And I will say this too, Denise, the way that when I'm using the conference app, I usually have the screen that I'm sharing as a separate window than the conference app. So I'll have two windows side by side, one with my my page that I'm trying to show, and then the conference app off to the side so I can see the chat, and I can see a smaller image of my screen, and then I can see their videos as well.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome. I see Carly had a question about yeah, getting the conference app to the students. Yes, Carly, this link right here at the top, you can just copy that link, and that's what you can just paste right into your updates or that announcement. That's essentially going to be the same the same link that kids would go to. If you want to make it easier, you could put it as a bit.ly. If you're not familiar with bit.ly.com, you can just copy that and shorten it down, so then they can just type in that bit.ly and go to it. With the bit.ly, I will say they do have to log into Schoology, of course. Other questions? Well, I will stay on for a few more minutes if people do have questions in the within Schoology. I'll stay on for a few more minutes, but again, I'm going to be stopping the recording at this point, and thank you.